On the Day of Atonement, from the Talmud, Treatise 5, Chapter 6, translated by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Recorded for LibriVox Coffee Break Collection, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Craig Campbell in Appleton, Wisconsin. On the Day of Atonement. 1. Both he-goats for the Day of Atonement are commanded to be alike in color, and in stature, and in price, and to be selected at the same time. And although they be not equal, yet are they lawful. If one be selected today and the other tomorrow, they are lawful. If one of them die, if he die before the lot be cast, the priest shall take a pair for the second. And if after the lot be cast he die, the priest shall fetch another pair, and cast the lot over them anew. And he shall say, if that for the name die, this over which this lot comes will be a substitute for the name. And if that for Azazel die, this over which this lot comes will be substitute for Azazel. And the second shall go to pasture until he become blemished, and he shall be sold, and his price must be put into the offertory. Since the sin offering of the congregation dies not, our Judah said, Thou shalt die. And again said our Judah, Is his blood shed? The one to be sent forth shall die. Has the one to be sent forth died? His blood shall be shed. 2. The high priest came to the side of the goat to be sent forth, and he placed his 2 hands on him, and made confession. And thus he spake, I beseech thee, O name, thy people, the house of Israel, have done perversely, have transgressed and sinned before thee. I beseech thee, O name, pardon now their perverse doings, and their transgressions, and their sins, which they have perversely committed, and transgressed, and sinned before thee. Thy people, the house of Israel, as is written in the law of Moses, thy servant, saying, For on that day shall he make an atonement for you, to cleanse you from all your sins. Before the Lord ye shall be pure. And the priests and the people who stood in the court, on hearing the name clearly pronounced by the mouth of the high priest, knelt and worshipped, and fell on their faces and said, Blessed be the name, the honor of his kingdom forever and ever. 3. They delivered the goat to his conductor. All were eligible for conducting him, but the great priests made a rule, and they did not permit Israel to lead him forth. Said our Joseph, It occurred that Azazel of Zippori lead him forth, and he was an Israelite. 4. And they made steps for him by reason of the Babylonians, who plucked off his hair, and said to him, Take and go, take and go. The nobles of Jerusalem escorted him to the first booth. There were 10 booths, from Jerusalem to Zuk, 90 stadia, 7.5 to every mile. 5. At every booth they said to him, There is food, there is water. And they escorted him from booth to booth, except the last. For they came not with him to Zuk, but stood afar off, and saw his acts. 6. What did he do? His conductor divided the tongue of brightness, half he twisted on the rock, and half he twisted between his horns. And he thrust him backwards, and the goat rolled and descended. And he had not reached to the half of the mountain till his members were made members. He returned and sat under the last booth until darkness set in. And when did he render garments unclean? From his exit from the wall of Jerusalem, our Simon said, from the time of his thrusting at Zuk. 7. The high priest came beside the bullock and he-goat which were to be burned. He cleft them and brought out their entrails. He put them on a dish and caused them to smoke upon the altar. He folded them in their skins and caused them to be carried to the place of burning. And when did he render garments unclean? From his proceeding without the wall of the court, our Simon said, when the fire kindled on the greatest part of the sacrifice. 8. They said to the high priest, The he-goat has arrived in the wilderness. And whence knew they that the he-goat had arrived in the wilderness? They set watchmen who waved handkerchiefs, and they knew that the he-goat had arrived in the wilderness. Said our Judah, And was not this a great sign to them? From Jerusalem to Beth-horon there were 3 miles. They went a mile and returned, and rested a time for a mile. And they knew that the he-goat arrived in the desert. Our Ishmael said, And was not there another sign to them? A tongue of brightness was twisted on the door of the sanctuary, and when the he-goat arrived in the wilderness, the tongue blanched. As is said, Though your skins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. End of On the Day of Atonement.